Hello, everyone, and welcome to Sonic Comic Chaos. I'm your host, Silver1. Joining me, as always, is my co-host, Ian Waffles. Ian, say hi.
Hello.
And today, we have a very special episode for you guys, because, as you probably saw from the title and the thumbnail, we are talking about the Lost Archie Sonic story. Now, as you all know, Archie Sonic was canceled prematurely because stuff happened. But again, it was canceled so prematurely that they just had stuff done. You know, they had scripts and art, and in some cases, full comics done that just didn't get released. And one of those has been unearthed. Actually, you know what, Ian? You were the one who brought this to my attention. You explain where this came from.
Yeah, so basically, I was talking to someone about the comics, and they had mentioned that Matt Herms, who was one of the colorists on Archie Sonic, I think all the way to the end of Reboot as well, he just had the issue, and he was like, fuck it, I'm going to release it. So he released it on his Patreon, and once it's in the hands of the internet, it's in the hands of everybody, and now we have it. So we have the lost final issue of Sonic Universe, because I think everything after that was still in like the image, like the penciling phase, which you can find the pencils for issue 96 as well. But this one is like completely done. It's not like, they have like the art's kind of wonky or like some of the dialogue's missing. No, it is a complete finished Archie Sonic issue that both Archie and Sega had, and Archie assumedly was not able to sell, and Sega did not want to share. So I think Matt Herms was like, fuck it, who's going to be mad? So he released it.
Well, that's the thing, right? It's like, who could possibly take legal action at this point? Yeah. Like, Archie can't, and I don't think Sega can. So, like,
there you go.
This is there.
So now we have it.
Now we have it, and we're going to talk about it. And it's interesting because obviously it's only one issue, but I think it does definitely spark a greater discussion because it seemed like it was kicking off like a whole new story arc. And
yeah, so the point of this, what we do know about the Sonic Universe is that each issue for this, because you know how Sonic Universe is always 4 issues, right?
Yes.
So for this one, it was supposed to be about how at the end of Reboot, Sonic and the this was kind of like the send-off to Sonic and the Freedom Fighters. We had that final story, but now, as Reboot is wont to do, it's trying to kind of get closer and closer to the games, as possible, so that eventually the series could be something that anyone could pick up and read. And so after the Dark Gaia story with the Shattered World, the plan was that Sonic and the Freedom Fighters would split off to do their own thing. And so what these universe arc was supposed to do is that each one would establish each of the Freedom Fighters to go off and presumably all get their own universe stories in the future. So Antoine will have something to do that we'll talk about. Bunny would be learning about her connection to the Soul Dimension. Sally, Cream, and Amy, I think we're going to go off and do something, and then whatever the fourth one was going to be, probably with Rotor. So this kind of works really well because we don't have an incomplete story here. We actually have one of those one-off adventures.
Yes, and so we're just going to talk about it. We're not going to do Ian and Ace read your comments for a multitude of reasons. Most of all, we're recording this right after we record the last episode, and I forgot to get more comments. So we're just gonna dive right in with Sonic Universe number 95, Freedom Fighters Part 1 of 1, I guess.
Yeah.
So it starts with Sonic and Antoine. They're fighting. Do we find out what's this guy's name? Do we find out?
This guy? I don't know. They probably say it, but it's some jerk in a castle.
Yeah, so they're fighting this guy with a big sword in a castle, and Antoine gets knocked down. But wait, how did we get here? Well, let's go back to earlier. So sometimes we forget, but Antoine was the original plane flyer, and so he flew the plane here with Sonic, and they arrive at this castle that apparently was owned by Antoine's family. And we see that it's been defaced. Like there's like a topiary of, I think this is his dad or probably like one of his ancestors, that just had its head cut off.
Yeah.
And we also find out, interestingly enough, that Antoine's parents were just maintaining this big ass castle by themselves.
Yes, because they're rich and royalty, and we don't want them to have servants. So
yeah, I guess. I don't know. But so
he's good royalty.
He's good royalty. But so basically we see that they don't quite talk about it here, but the implication is that like since Antoine's parents died, like he hasn't been back here. Like he's been avoiding coming back here. And so basically, Sonic's like sees that he's bummed out, and so there's a cool character moment for him where he
Yeah.
goes like, "Hey, tell me about this castle. Like, tell me about like these banners and the history behind it."
Yeah, I really liked that because it was like because then once Antoine starts going off about it, Sonic's like, well, you asked for this Hedgehog, but just let him talk. He's happy.
Yeah, but so then we find out that fucking Excalibur Sonic is canon.
Yeah, which is fucking rad.
I was not prepared for this. So basically,
and Griffith is in Sonic.
yeah, I'm gonna be honest here. I don't remember a lot of the lore, but basically, there were three kingdoms, or there they gave it to they gave the Ian. You explain this. I don't remember. I just remember Excalibur Sonic, and that was cool.
And your brain stopped, and you
Well, because this guy's name is King Arthur, right? Or it's King yeah, King Arthur, or King Arthur Sylvania. Oh wait, under King Arthur Sylvania. Okay, I can't fucking read. Point is, so it's super interesting though, because obviously at the end of Sonic and the Black Knight, they're like, Sonic, you're King Arthur. It doesn't really make any sense. So we establish here that like King Arthur, I guess, was just a guy who looked a lot like Sonic.
Yeah, which is like a fun little idea in this universe.
Yeah, and so he had like the Knights of the Round, and it was interesting. But
and we also know like there's this whole thing of a knighthood exchange where like
yes.
different kingdoms will like, because you have the one who's like the Acorn King. And so the idea is that Antoine, how he ended up like, and I think they established this in their origin story, but Antoine basically like was transferred over there to Mobotropolis, to like a transfer a knight during that. So, and that's when like Mobotropolis was attacked basically.
Yeah. So basically, there's these different kings. It doesn't really matter. They do the exchange, and it's a whole thing. But he but we find out like there's do we find out here about the magic swords, or is that later?
I think that's later.
Okay. But so basically, Antoine's like, yeah, it's pretty cool, and then we see that the portrait of his dad and or one of his ancestors has been defaced.
Yes.
And we find out that it was done by an egg boss by the name of...
Who are you? I am Inigo Cortez.
Yeah, I think he's meant to be Spanish. He's not as stereotypical as the stereotypes in older Archie Sonic. But he does
as literally Antoine standing right in front of us.
Yeah, but he'll throw out the occasional like baño or whatever.
Yeah,
which is Spanish for bathroom.
There you go.
I remember none of I took 2 semesters of Spanish in college. I remember none of it, but I remember baño's bathroom. Anyway, so he's like, hey, there's some magic swords here, but you suck. What are you doing here? You're a coward, and I'm gonna get the swords. So Sonic and him fight. Ingo, I already forgot his name. And we find out this big sword he has is magic. So is this one of the 7 swords?
I think it's right? It's one of the swords.
This is one of the swords. Okay. So then by the end of this, they would have 2 of the swords, right? Because I think at the end of this, they say we have 6 swords left to get. I don't know. Anyway,
whatever.
Doesn't matter. It's cool. Yeah, there's a cool fight. Shit. I
like this line from Sonic and Antoine. This like a nice little moment of them. Sonic goes, "Gotta love those ego trippers. All that monologuing leaves them wide open." And then Antoine says, "Oi, but at least you have your speed to compensate." He goes, "Save the sick burns for later."
Yeah, that was a great bit. I liked that. Yeah, and so then we cut back to the present where Antoine's laying on the ground, and he's real upset, and he says like, I should have been here. I shouldn't have like stayed away. And he goes and he opens up the case that has the sword in it, and in it there's a note from his parents that basically says like, hey, we wish we could be here to give you the sword, but just know like we love you and we're proud of you, and like you deserve this. Like this is yours. Yeah. And so he takes it out and he goes up and he fights the guy, and it's really fucking cool.
Yeah, well, and like when he like fell down there or whatever, he like fell through like one of their like their flag, and so he wears the flag as a cape.
Yeah, it's fucking dope. Like, of course, they wait until after reboot's already ended to give Antoine a fucking magic sword. Like, what?
Yeah, and then he also, and then they have the thing of like, you know, the blade is strong because it thinks I'm worthy because I think I'm worthy, and then he wins.
Yeah, I actually really like that line.
Mhm.
Basically where it's like I believe in myself, and so it's cool, and so it's drawn very well, and yeah, he beats him, and he's like, well,
Get out of here,
leave.
nerd.
Yeah, he's basically like just get like and I think the line is actually interesting. He goes, let him run home to his master and let him tell of how the coward Antoine found the sword he could not, unlocked its power, and beat him in single combat in 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so then he runs away, and yeah, so and there's actually a great bit where Sonic goes like, "Hey, this whole like messed up look, it looks good on you. Bunny would really dig it." And Antoine's like, "Oh, you think so?"
He's like, oh baby.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's cute.
Um,
They have a little. Then they actually. I do appreciate that Sonic helps him clean up the place.
Yeah.
Sonic's just like being a bro in this one, and I think can I just describe the ending?
Sure.
Yeah, so the ending I really like. This is where like, you know, we get to what's very sad, because so this is like the last basically shot of like all of all of Archie Sonic, is that Sonic is they get on the plane, and Antoine's like, well, I flew us over here, and Sonic goes, dude, you have a cape, you can't miss this chance. And so the
Yeah.
final shot is literally just a quiet silent image of Antoine standing on the plane like a badass, as Sonic's like, yeah, that's my bro. The end.
Yeah. You always forget that Sonic was the plane belongs to Sonic. Like
Yeah.
Sonic would fly planes.
Yeah.
But
There you go.
yeah. So that's and I'm sad now. um,
Yeah, give me your thoughts, sir.
I will say I think this really cemented it. I talked a lot about how much I had, like Antoine had grown on me over when we were doing Reboot.
Yeah.
And not that I disliked him in Preboot, just more so it had been so long since I'd read Reboot, and there's a lot of stuff. We're back to Reboot now, so I'm back to messing up the reboots and the preboots. It had been so long since I'd read Preboot that like I just didn't remember. I remembered like him sacrificing himself, but like a lot of the little Antoine moments I had forgotten. So when we got to reading Reboot,
And he was like consistently around and kind of being fun and likable.
yeah, so I think like as far as Reboot's concerned, like Antoine's definitely my favorite freedom fighter. And so I guess in that regard, I'm glad that like this last issue we got was one that he got to, star in and be cool and get a magic sword. Again, it just obviously it's unfortunate that we'll never see where this goes.
Yeah, or anything really. But yeah. So I'll be the Debbie Downer. I don't think this is bad at all, but I do think what's interesting, I say this more from an intriguing perspective, is that when I read this, I saw this and I said, wow, this is Reboot. Because like it didn't like, because like it's been like years since like we got a previous issue, right? And so you look at all this stuff and you think like, it's like, oh man, what could have been? It's like, and then so you go into it, and a part of me at least thought, what if it's like completely different from like how things were, like Flynn really was gonna like make a shift, or like what if it's like kind of worse or better or all these different things. And like reading it, I was like, no, this is exactly like Reboot. Good and bad. So from the good, I think would be all the stuff you talked about, where it's like it's the art looks really good, like especially the lighting looks really nice. Especially like the scene where he's underground and he gets like the sword, and he's got like the little tear and like the clash and all that stuff looks really neat. And then like Sonic's personality, I really like it's nice to like Sonic again after IDW makes me not. It's fun to just see like the little, the little cute interactions they have every now and then. But then also, and again, I don't even mean this as like a big negative, but just more of like an observation. It also has all of the kind of complaints I often have with Reboot, which is that there's a lot of exposition, because Flynn is always trying to kind of like create the world, which I appreciate, but there's a lot of exposition without a lot of imagery. So the moment that I think is a lot very weak here is the moment where he gets the sword, because instead of seeing any sort of flashback of like, even just if they were silhouetted, them like talking to Antoine or like caring about him or whatever, it's just a wall of text, aka a letter, and then he's like, oh, I believe in myself. So it feels a bit rushed, but I think the heart of it is still there, which is what Reboot had. But it also, again, it just has all the complaints I often have at Reboot, which is there's a lot of exposition, a lot of talking, it's a little rushed, and a lot of the paneling is a little flat from time to time. So it's just interesting that like this issue really just embodies all of Reboot, and that like, yeah, like it really felt to me, the main takeaway I took was like, it was like I was being transported to another dimension where Archie Sonic kept going, and we would live in like a 2024 where like the freedom fighters are still characters that exist to this day. It's a little sad.
I wish. But Yeah, no, it was good. I'm curious where this was going though. So like you said that you think this was meant to set up like a Sonic Universe arc with
Probably
like
about
Ant
Antoine.
yeah, like with him like probably looking for these seven swords.
They would probably also like splice in like B stories maybe, like in the main comic. Like we'd probably
Yeah.
like every now and then it'd be like, what's Amy and Sally doing? What's Bunny doing? What's Antoine doing? So because again, that's always the interesting thing about so Flynn has said this. He said even in Preboot, the long-term goal of Preboot from the very beginning was to get it to a point where you could be a game fan and come in and it would just make sense. And
Yeah.
to that initiative, as you notice over all of Preboot, Flynn is slowly, like meticulously, this is why it's really respectfully done. He is meticulously kind of removing different things that were like unique to the Preboot universe, adding in game stuff, but then also still like keeping the extended arcs of those characters. And as we saw by the end of the story too, Flynn was getting like the freedom fighters to kind of we were doing more stuff with Mobitropolis. We were, we got like rid of Snively and all these different things. And then he said like Reboot, what was interesting to him about Reboot is basically Reboot is just what he was going to inevitably do with Preboot, but accelerated at like 90% speed. So like I assume to me that Preboot eventually was going to end. Like I think, you know how they have like Team Fighters and Team Freedom and Team Secret Freedom. I think the end goal of that was actually to create like their little spaceship, their little like flying ship that they use to fly around the world and fight evil. Because obviously, I think what Flynn wanted to do eventually was have Sonic be what he is in the games. He's always going around with his friends and just doing things. And then obviously, I think what's interesting about this though is we've reached the end of that initiative, which is Sonic gets one final adventure with all his friends, and now Sonic is just solo. He runs around and meets up with whoever he is, just like in the video games. And the other characters are off having their own adventures, and the freedom fighters are kind of broken off doing their own things, being their own characters. So it's kind of interesting that like this is kind of like the start of the third phase of Flynn's like Archie Sonic initiative, which is to get the comics to be as close to the games as possible. It's just kind of interesting to see that.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, not much more to add there. I think it's certainly interesting. I do wonder like what that would have looked like though, just because like I mean I guess it's just like do you think he would have like disbanded the freedom fighters entirely, like and just had them be like off doing their own thing, like Bunny and Antoine are over here, Rotor's over here, Sally's over here, like, or do you think like it would have been like these characters are in a group over here and then Sonic is over here?
Well, what it would have been, I think, is like what Universe does is even in because in what Universe is all about is, well, what's Shadow gonna do as arc? That's too many characters, so we just give Shadow 3 Sonic Universe arcs in Reboot, right? He has the Shadow Fall, he has the one with Knuckles, and then he has the final one. So like I think that's what it would have been. I think it would have been that eventually the goal was to make it that Sonic is just Sonic and he will team up with different characters. And again, I don't think that even means the Freedom Fighters wouldn't come back together. But I think what it means is that no longer would the story be that Sonic hangs out with Bunny, Antoine, Rotor, Tails, Amy in like in like a core team. This is where Sonic lives, whether it's Mobitropolis or it's in the what's their plane called? Sky Patrol.
God.
Yeah, Sky Patrol. I think eventually what he was going for is eventually it would be like a Sonic comic where Sonic has this big, massive world, and that massive world just happens to be filled with things you know from the games, things you know from the shows, things you know from all these things. And Sonic, though, would be the core thing of like you come in and Sonic is going to team up with a different character and go on different adventures. I think that is like the long-term goal he had for Reboot. I don't know how that would have looked in Preboot, but I do think like that seemingly was his long-term goal. Now, you got to also remember when he says long-term goal, he had plans up to like issue 300 for Preboot, and by 300 they were still supposed to be like a team. So, so again, when he says like long-term, like he really wasn't like trying to rush to this, like trying to like get rid of it. But it's very interesting to consider.
Yeah, but so
and also he said and also you got to remember that I would assume even without Reboot, because you got to think when Reboot was made, Sega seemed to make it very clear that they kind of negated a lot of the stuff they could do in Preboot because they wanted it to be more on brand. So imagine like Ace, like nowadays, right? Sonic is like the most like brand safe ever. Imagine an Archie Sonic that would have to conform to that. So at a certain point, I don't even know if it would be in Flynn's hands. I think he was more maybe pointing towards the inevitable.
It's I don't know. It's crazy to think about, like, because I think you're right about like, I mean, obviously Flynn's literally said it, but also it's like it's one of those things where it's like saying like a lot. I'm sorry, but with
No,
with Sonic. Yeah, it was always gonna the comics could only exist as this weird Sad AM spinoff for so long.
yeah, and the fact it did it for 24 years is a miracle.
Yeah, and so I think it's weird that, and it's interesting that like this would have been like kind of the breakup of that, and that we were like, it stopped right before then.
Yeah, that the final shot of the Freedom Fighters is them like all huddled together on Sky Patrol, watching the world they saved be put back together, and that was kind of supposed to be like the last time they're like a team for long term, you know.
Yeah.
And again, not even to say, but to be fair, remember in Reboot, the context of Sonic is that he comes into the kingdom of Acorn. He's not like he didn't like grow up with these guys. He comes in and he like saves their king like off screen or whatever, which is like Nagas or whatever. And then like they decide like we want to help you, Sonic, and they form the Freedom Fighters. So Sonic is like I guess this would make more sense. Sonic is like part of the Freedom Fighters in the same way that Batman is part of the Justice League, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So where like Sonic, I think eventually would be just doing his own thing. The only reason he's with the Freedom Fighters full time in Reboot is that the world is being destroyed. So this is our mission, right? It's a long-term mission. But once the world's fixed, well, I'm just going to run off and do my own thing. And of course I'll see my friends. I love my friends, you know, I'll see them around. So, which is just, again, interesting to think, especially since we've already ripped away them being childhood friends, Sally being his love interest. And now we've even ripped away, and they already did this. We've even ripped away the idea of like Sonic is like glued to the Freedom Fighters. These are his guys, you know? So it's just interesting.
Yeah. I do really wonder. Of course they start doing Black Knight shit, right? When the group gets canceled. I fucking love that game. God damn it. But so I do wonder like what this like, do you think we would have seen like Excalibur Antoine? Like, do you think when the Seven Swords came together, that's what would have happened?
That was what I always wanted for preview, is I wanted when they fight Nagas, because obviously like they established that you can only hurt him with the sword. I really, really wanted that Sonic like uses the Sword of Light and like just whatever magic bullshit you need to do, he would become Excalibur Sonic and defeat Nagas. That's what I wanted.
That's so cool.
So I assume Flynn always wanted at least some way to like get Excalibur Sonic, because why wouldn't you?
I mean, yeah. I mean, he is objectively the best Sonic transformation. So,
and he's the second best Super transformation.
What's the first?
Super Scourge.
Really? That's your favorite?
Dude, the black sunken in red eyes with the purple aura and like the blue glasses. He's fucking awesome.
I'm a sucker for the armor though.
He's got blue flames on his like jacket.
Yeah, I mean, he's cool. I'm not dissing awesome. Super Scourge. I just anyway. So do we know anything like, so we know that Bunny was going to be revealed to be from the Soul Dimension. Do we know anything else about that?
Well, I could send you the link to Sonic Universe 98 and we could do a live not like read through, obviously there's no text, but all of the pencil sketches are done, so we could look over that if you wanted.
Why not?
Yeah. But yeah, so like the pencil sketches, I don't know when these were uploaded, but I think these are recent too. Because I used to always be on like the Sonic, like Archie, like whenever I was reading it, even as a kid, I would always like look into this stuff. So I was like shocked when he was like, oh yeah, like this is here. Control V. There it is. Okay. There you go. And we even have the cover where it's like a Sonic Rush recreation, but Bunny's in Sonic's place.
pretty great.
And so Blaze and Sonic are like, what the fuck?
So was Sonic gonna be in all of these? Well, I guess I'll look and find out. So
right.
All right. So Bunny, there's, oh my god, Marine's going crazy. Gosh. Okay. So then so she comes down and she's like, hey, where are you? Why don't point the stick at me. And then she's like, oh well, we gotta take you to Blaze. And then there's the jeweled scepter. That's pretty cool.
By the way, to clarify, so Bunny's just like in the middle of nowhere, and then Marine pops out of like a giant flash of light, and she's like, "Hey, what's up?"
Yeah. And so then this bit looks cute. This opening bit with her and Marine looks so fun.
Yeah, and then so the interesting thing, right, is that Bunny touches the scepter, and Marine's like, "Huh?" And then it teleports them like away.
Yeah. Oh my god, this escalated quickly. What's Blaze doing? Hold on. So they teleport in here, and then I assume this would have been like a meanwhile, like Blaze and this. They're fighting. Are they fighting pirates?
See, they look like little fire demons.
I don't know who they are. But they look cool.
Also, I love the paneling of like because she's holding them like all together, and then they start melting the panel and escape.
Yeah, that is cool. And then she they're fighting, and then then Blaze and Bunny team up. Yeah, because there was like a whole thing in Reboot, right? Of like, where's Bunny from? We don't know. I'm not mistaken. That was a
Yes.
plot, right?
Yeah, that was established that they didn't know where she was from.
All right, and then Crudsicle. What?
But yeah, then she so then like all the flames kind of merge together and they make like this fire guy who looked really cool.
Yeah. Oh god, yeah. That looks okay. I'm not crazy. That looks like Mephiles, right?
Oh yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah. Then they fight him for a bit.
Yeah.
Let's see.
Dude, this guy's totally Mephiles. Are you fucking kidding me? We got Excalibur, Sonic, and Mephiles right after the comic was canceled.
Yeah, they took everything from you, Ace.
They took everything from me.
Yeah, but then something cool happens where Bunny, she like taps into some power from like the soul dimension, it seems like. And they're like, what the heck? And then she shoots like a giant blast and blows them up.
Yeah. And so then, then boom, and then she heals her. Is that a power Blaze has? I don't know. And then they're like, woo, and then Bunny's got some ghosty people behind her.
So by the way, I would assume, right, that these would be the things that Blaze is quote unquote collecting, or not Blaze, Bunny. So like Antoine's collecting the swords, right? And then Bunny is probably like looking into all these guys.
Yeah, well, we see here there's like an outline of like a shield. There's the scepter. There's a couple things, and then she's crying. See, and then
they're probably like, you're connected to this somehow. You're like royalty or whatever.
Yeah, and so then she hippity hops through the portal. And then for some reason Knuckles and the Dark Legion comes up. So
that's it.
That's it. Do we? Oh man. So do we know? So I assume the next one would have been probably what, Rotor?
I think the next one would have been.
Oh no.
What's that?
It's we actually have some pages for the next one too.
Really? Oh
yeah.
The fight rabbit hole even? I don't
know. Nicole's fighting Phage. It was Phage, right? It's called Phage. Yeah.
Oh,
it's really. It's rough.
This one would have been Sally, Amy
and Nicole. Yeah, and so then they're fighting, and then because if I'm not mistaken, the first issue after Genesis of a Hero was meant to be setting up them all going on these adventures, right?
Yes.
And so then she's talking to Cream. Sally is going to sleep. They're motobugs. Oh, they go to Nicole's not dad.
Yes.
And then they're talking. There's Metal Sonic, or that might. Oh no, I think that's the Metal Sonic from Knuckles Chaotix, the big one.
Yeah.
So.
And then finally, we have the cover for issue 98, and that's it. Which is, like you said, a Rotor. Apparently, he was going to be doing stuff with Tails.
Yeah, him and Tails.
And it would have been set up for his dad, obviously.
Yeah, and then we got nothing but we don't even, for some reason the cover shows in the gallery, but they don't have it as like the cover image for this page.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's it. I'm sad now. Ian, you made me sad. I hope you're happy with yourself. I could have lived a long, happy life not knowing that Excalibur Sonic and Mephiles the Dark were almost in Archie Sonic, and you fucking had to do this to me.
I'm sorry, my friend. Yeah.
Yeah. But
now we came back to Reboot just to suffer, as always.
Yeah. Yeah, but it's pretty cool. It was a fun time looking through this stuff. Yeah, it feels like a little bit of a I was gonna say a goodbye, but we kind of already did that, and I would say, well, kind of like a funeral. But I would say like the Reboot wrap up was kind of like that too.
What we did a séance, and we talked to the spirit of Reboot Sonic, and we were like, "Damn, man."
Yeah, we did that, and it didn't provide us any closure. It only made us sadder.
It only made things worse.
Yeah. So I guess if you take any lessons from this, audience, sometimes just leave well enough alone.
Bye.
Wait, no, we need to do more things. Next time when we come back, it's been a long, rough road, but we're finally here. We're talking about Ian Flynn's, the beginning of his run on Preboot Archie Sonic. We're going to be talking about the Scourge, his first story, and we're gonna be talking about Darkest Storm, and it's gonna be really, really cool.
Yeah.
So come back next time for that. Ian, plug your shit.
I'm Ian Waffles. You can find me Ian Waffles on Twitter and YouTube, and that's it. We're finally here, folks. We're finally gonna get to read Preboot. Archie, Flynn, Sonic, let's go. Bye.
Let's go. Bye.